What's going on, everybody? It's that time. It's a what's on my deck. We've been down here in Florida. It's the start of March. We've been down here since January. So this one's going to be totally Florida based. Obviously all shallow water, swamp style fishing that we have down here in Florida. A lot of offshore stuff, a lot of heavy vegetation like nowhere else you'll ever come across in the country. Florida definitely has the hardest vegetation. So yeah, we're going to kick it off right now. We just wrapped up a tournament here at the Harris Chain and we got a split literally tonight. We got to start our trek to Smith Lake for the next MLF circuit event. So before I put all this stuff away, I figured now's the perfect time to bust it all out and show you all what we were using. So we'll kick it off right away with the speed worm. I'm throwing this on a G Loomis NRX 894 jig worm rod. That's a 4-power, so it's pretty heavy. You know, they're going to poke this thing, and I need plenty of a backbone to be able to get them, and at the same time I need that backbone to get them out of that heavy vegetation. Even the hydrilla here, super thick. They like to run into those clumps. Definitely need a lot of rod to get them out. I'm throwing it on a Shimano Metanium. This is a HG model, so it's 7-to-1 gear ratio. I'm throwing straight 17-pound Seaguar Tatsu Fluorocarbon, and the actual worm is it's a Zoom Magnum speed worm in June bug, a gray color down here in Florida. I'm using a 5/0 owner round bend hook, a 5/16 ounce Woo tungsten weight. And again, I'm just going to throw this thing anywhere. That's why I say it's versatile. I can flip pads with it. I can throw it at offshore hydrilla, eelgrass, you name it. This thing just gets bit this time of year. There's like a lot of like needlefish and stuff like that run around here, a lot of snakes and stuff. I've never been anywhere in the country that it works so good as it does down here in Florida. Next up, let's talk about a frog, a good old frog. You know, I don't throw this like I would necessarily around the rest of the country in vegetation. I mean, I am throwing it in vegetation, but not really working it like a frog. I'm actually using it a lot of times looking for spawners and fry garters. Big females don't like it, so I'm using a real kind of flamboyant frog here. It's real bright yellow, a lot of glitter to it. It's a poppin' frog. I can keep it in one place. You know, a devil's horse is always a staple down here, but for me, you know, I don't throw a devil's horse year round. The accuracy on it's very key. It's one of those that I do throw quite a bit, but this frog is even more versatile. So if there's a lot of vegetation around, I can throw this thing in there and have it do the exact same thing. I'm using straight 50-pound Power Pro SSV2 braided line. I'm using a Shimano Expride 7.2 medium heavy rod. This is perfect. Even though I'm throwing around vegetation, I'm still, you know, I'm giving it a lot of action and part in action. I don't really want a long rod like I would if I was hoofing them out of the lily pads. My reel of choice is going to be the Shimano Metanium, and it's an XG, so it's a 8-to-1 gear ratio. When they do take it down, I want to be able to pick up that line real quick. Next up, a trap. Anytime it's free spawn anywhere in the country, you got to be throwing a trap. A lot of times if I was somewhere else, it'd maybe be red, but in Florida, you know, something shaddy like this works great. We had a little bit of a shad spawn going on at this one. Again, we're still waiting to see how this one turned out. If we're going to get a check or not, it's going to be close, but I did catch a lot of fish on the Harris Chain this week throwing this trap, and this is a Yo-Zuri Rattlin vibe. I'm throwing owner STX trebles on it, straight 17-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. I like the castability of Invizx. I like the little bit of stretch that Invizx has. I'm using a Poison Adrena rod. This is a 7.3 medium heavy. This is an awesome trap rod. It's about the only thing I use it for is trapping, but I love it for it. And one of my favorites, I talk about it all the time, the Shimano Curado K, best reel bang for your buck. This is the 200 HG, so it's the 7.4 model. Again, a lot of yo-yoing with this stuff like that. I want to be able to pick it up, but at the same time, if I'm casting and reeling, I don't really want that 8-speed. That might get a little too fast on me. Next up, a jerkbait. You know, it's something that I didn't really throw a lot when I came to Florida. I always thought, you know, punching mats and stuff like that, but a jerkbait plays. This one right here is a Megabass Idle Vision 110, Vision 110. I think it's Tennessee shad. I'm not quite entirely sure on the color. I'm throwing again owner STX hooks. They just get them. A Shimano Expride. This one right here is a 610 medium. Really nice jerkbait rod, and I'm using a Shimano Metanium DC. And this one's an HG. A lot of times I'd use the XG, but the HG is the only one that I brought with, so I do like the 8-speed, but the 7-speed works just fine. But the DC in this thing is awesome for jerkbait. We're throwing jerkbaits a lot of times in frontal conditions, and the DC lets me cast really hard right into the wind so that, you know, I make sure that that jerkbait's coming back in those fish's faces. But again, this is my setup, and I was using straight 12-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. So what's next? The old bed bait. You know, I'm using this. This is a Carl's Bait Company. This is a little craw that they make. I don't even know the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll definitely put it up in the description. This little craw's been awesome for bedfish. I used it here at the Harris Chain some, more so early in practice. I used it down in Okeechobee. I talked about it there, but this thing is just awesome. I was using 3/8 ounces. Actually using a red weight. I'm not even sure who makes this one, but I just like the color red. I got a little Hog Farmer ball on there. It rattles a little bit, and I'm using an Owner wide gap jungle hook, extra wide gap, and a 3/0. For the reel, I'm using a Shimano Metanium. This is an XG again, so an 8-speed. When I hit that fish, I'm bed fishing again. I just want to control it and get it in the boat right away. I'm using a Loomis NRX 7.5 heavy fast action rod, and that's the 894 jig worm rod. Same rod I was using for the speed worm. I use this for jigs. We're headed to Smith Lake. I'll be pitching around a jig with this thing. Probably my most versatile bait casting rod in the whole entire line. And that was straight 17-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon line. Next up, the Chatterbug. I have changed out the colors many times, but the trailer always stays the same. It's a Biospon Exo Swim, a 3.25. I think that's a Sungill color. I'm using a Golden Shiner color, ½ ounce Z-Man jackhammer chatterbait, the best one that they make. I'm using the Shimano Expride glass rod. This is a glass composite rod. I've used this for the chatterbait. I've talked about it many times. Really nice rod for that. And then again, the Shimano Curado in a 200 HG. That's 7-speed gear ratio. And anytime I'm casting, I really like the Invizx line. If I'm casting and retrieving, and I'm using here 17 pounds, straight 17 pounds Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. But the chatterbait, extremely versatile. Again, pre-spawn all over the country and definitely good down in Florida. It goes through some of the thickest vegetation with ease, and at the same time really calls up those big bites. A chatterbait is always a staple all over the country, let alone down here in Florida. What's next? The good old Carolina rig. This is a little Biospon worm, June bug, chartreuse tail. It's actually pretty sexy bait. I was using this to fish shell beds. I'm using a Shimano Curado 200 XG. You know, you're doing a big sweeping hook set when you're throwing a Carolina rig. I like to be able to get back on that fish right away and, you know, double hit them if I have to. Straight 20-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon. I actually wanted to make sure I was feeling the shell, so I was throwing a 3/4 ounce Tungsten, never chip weight. And then here I got one of their little balls that just helps protect my knot, a little tiny swivel, and then all the way down here to the actual Biospon worm, I'm using a 4/0 Owner round bend hook. I think I covered everything on this. Oh, the rod itself is actually the Loomis NRX 873 Carolina rig rod. Awesome Carolina rig rod, but also good for like football jigs, anything you're dragging, finesse jigs, anything you're dragging offshore. It's an awesome offshore rod. All right, we got 2 left. One of my favorite things to do when I am in Florida is to pitch pads. Pitch anything really, reed stocks, pads, anything. It's pretty lethal. A lot of guys use Senkos. Sometimes I will, but this Exopod has been just deadly for me ever since I started. It's a Biospon Exopod. I either use it in June bug or in this case black and blue, but it's got this fat tail on it right here, and it's just awesome. I can get it down in the pads, in the stems of the reeds and the lily pads, and just shake the rod a little bit, and that tail comes out of there and just produces some really nice bites for me. I'm using a 4/0 Owner jungle hook, and this is the only straight shake hook I use. It's awesome. It's got a little fluorocarbon, hand-tied fluorocarbon keeper. It's great. I'm using a little 3/16 Tungsten never chip weight. It's pretty awesome. This little setup is very versatile. I pitch it and cast it to literally anything. Any kind of isolated cover, anything like that at all. I'm throwing a Loomis NRX 895 jig worm rod. That's a 5-power. It's an extra heavy. I like it because on those long casts, you know, if I give them a big hook set, it also has got extra power, like muscle behind it to really pull and not get bushed by those fish and get them out of there. And honestly, the big ones usually just come out. You know, they get there, and it doesn't really matter which one you're throwing. But those 2-pound fish are critical in Florida every time we come down here. And those are the ones that you actually get out of there that maybe bit it weird. They smallmouth. There's a lot of stuff that can catch that pad stem on the way out, and I got the lumber to get them out of there. I'm using, again, a Shimano Metanium. Loving this reel. This is an XG, 8-speed. Get the bite, set the hook, pick them up, and get them to the boat right away. That's the name of the game. And I'm using a 50-pound Power Pro SSV2 braid with an FG knot to 25-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon. I like this. If I have to scale this down, I will. But generally, I just don't have to. You know, this is something that's going to get big bites, and a lot of times those fish, they want to spawn on that isolated cover. They're there. It's just a matter of me, you know, extracting them from that thick cover. And last but not least, probably my favorite thing to do in Florida, one of the things that I fell in love with bass fishing thinking about, punching mats. I love punching mats. It's like my favorite thing to do. Florida sprays them, of course, they have to at times, but at the same time, it's what I come down here for. Any kind of pitching and punching that I can do. In this case, for here, the cover was sparse, so just know that the weight will change. A lot of times I'm using like an 1.25 ounce, 1.5 ounces, always a Woo Tungsten, never chip. I had a 3/4 on here because, again, there wasn't so many mats and stuff. It was mostly thicker, blown-in reed heads and stuff like that. But again, a 4/0 owner jungle hook. This is a Biospawn Vile Bug. Great little bait for punching. It's slick. It doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of movement to it, but it punches through really nice. It's compact, but still big enough profile to, you know, to get that kind of bite. And a lot of guys want to throw a beaver or something like that, but this has just a little bit more tail kick, and I think they like that. You know, the point is to pitch it in there and yo-yo it up a couple times. Give the bait a little bit of action. It's been warm. If it was colder, maybe I'd go with something that had a little bit less, like a beaver or something like that, but it's been warm. It's been mostly 80 degrees down here, so water temps almost 80. A little something to the bug is kind of nice. I'm using straight 65-pound Power Pro SSV2. I got plenty of line there. My rod, I think this is the best punching rod I've ever used in my life, and I'm very familiar with it because most of the time of my life it's been a GLX 711 medium heavy. That's a 953 FPR. A 3-power jig worm rod and a 3-power FPR, not the same thing. You know, it's showing you that it's a medium heavy for that class of rods. And in this case, the FPR's got a ton of backbone to it, but it's got a lot of bend, you know, and that's nice because you buckle up with those fish under those mats. A lot of times I'm snelling the knot on there. You know, you're going to reel down to them and give them that good hook set just straight up and lift them out of the mat, and you need the rod to be able to do that. These things are tough as nails. Again, Shimano Metanium, you're seeing something here. I am loving this reel. I can't say that enough. I have probably said that enough, but I really do like this reel. I'm using an XG. Again, the point is get the bite, get them out of there, and I need that muscle. And it's really nice now to be able to have an 8-speed reel that also has the muscle and the gear ratio, you know, the gear strength to get them things out of the mats. The vegetation down here is super duper thick. But that's my whole setup. That's my 9 rods that I give you guys for Florida. It's been an awesome time. We're getting ready to slowly start heading back north. Before we know it, I'm sure it'll be smallie season, but it's Smith Lakes. I'm sure we'll be talking spotted bass next month, but again, this one was for February, and this was all Florida fishing. Thank you for tuning in to What's on My Deck. Please subscribe and comment below. I'll try to answer everybody. If you got any questions at all, put it below. Thanks, guys.